What about this? Do you hear this? Do they hear this?
Testing.
I don't know what was happening. I was hearing the music.
Oh.
Let's see if they hear us. Oh. That's pretty weird. I don't know what was going on there. Oh, hang on. Yeah, no, everything's fine now. Hello, welcome to the news. I enjoyed this song. Blunty, all indications on my end were that the song was going out, but oh well. I guess no music for you. For those of you who say you don't like the song, this was your week. Welcome to the FPV News, JB and ItsBlunty. Good to see you again, Blunty.
Good to see you too, Joshua.
Yeah, it's a big week. It's like usually there's one big news story and maybe some littler stuff, and no, wow. It's a big week this week. What do we got lined up?
All right, so top of the news this week is definitely going to be FlightOne FalcoX was hacked. There's the source code leak. Some would say pwned.
I would say pwned. And you asked me before the stream, are we dating ourselves if we say pwned? And I said, no, that's just what it's called, pwned. But, you know, the kids may not say pwned anymore, my guy.
Yeah, let us know in the chat if you use pwned.
And if you're a boomer or a millennial.
Yeah, very true.
All right.
All right, so we'll go into that. That's going to be quite a story. We've also got a story, we haven't brought it to you before, but Axis Motors formed about a month ago, so we'll talk about what Axis Motor is from a few people at Tmotor.
Yeah.
And then in a little bit relation to that, there's also an issue with the Tmotor Blackbird V2. There's some Magnet and QC issues we'll go over.
Yeah. Blackbird left Tmotor.
Yeah.
Yeah. You might say they got pwned.
Nice.
Shouldn't say that. No, don't panda. Don't coddle me. Okay, go ahead.
TrueRC XAir 1.3 was released, so we'll take a quick look at that. That's a pretty cool antenna for some people.
Big ass antenna.
There's a Colorado FPV camping trip, and you're invited to Harstell, Colorado, June 25th through the 27th. So we'll talk about what that is and what you can expect when you go there.
Yeah, for those who missed Rampage and were saying, when is something like this happening again? It's happening in like a week and a half, 2 weeks, and it's free. So more details about that.
Yeah, it's like Rampage, but none of the events and a lot of the cool people hanging out. So,
do you say owned? Oh my God. Apparently you don't say pwned. That's just, now I'm really a loser. You say owned. I mean, I knew that's what it was, but I just, pwned. I'm going to Google that.
I think it depends on your age, because there was Pure Pwnage, which was a series, a Canadian series. Many people will remember.
How do you pronounce pwned? This is important, Blunty.
So
the source of the boom headshot memes, remember?
Pwned. Pretty straightforward, once you know, despite the curious spelling.
All right, it's pwned. Thank you. I'm saying it right. Thank you. Moving on.
This is GIF. Is what Grizz says in the chat.
Sorry, Blunty, I've interrupted you. Continue. What else are we talking about this week?
All right, so back to the news. WeBleed update. We'll have a WeBleed update. Did we win? Did we lose? Did we come in last? We'll find out.
I don't think you came in last. Come on.
Later in the show.
We'll find out.
Well, guess we'll find out. We've got a few community spotlights for you this week. We've got MarioFPV, who made a Pi 3B Mini OpenHD board. Pretty cool, cheap little board for a solution for his quad.
And I hope that one of the things we'll do is that you'll tell me what that is, because you said a lot of words there, Magic Man.
100%. We've also got a community spotlight from Colin, who made a Torvol tool organizer for your Torvol backpack. And that might be especially relevant with another one of the stories that we'll talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Then our last community spotlight will be from ExperimentalFPV, who tested some arm shapes in the style of Chris Rosser. And actually I talked to Chris Rosser about this, and he says looks pretty good. So
yeah,
I'm excited.
Exciting. All right.
We've got a cool story. The Runcam MIPI is coming out, so we'll talk about what that is, if you should be excited or not about the Runcam MIPI, a DJI camera.
Yeah, Runcam released. They're taking another stab at releasing a DJI camera because it went so well the first time.
Yeah, the Racer 4 that everybody talks about and buys.
Yes, still buying it.
We'll talk about, let's see, we'll talk about the Inav 3.0, which we talked about previously was out, was in RC, but now it's actually out. We'll talk about the DJI FPV drone mode, got an update with the goggles. Mads Tech got a push from DJI to get this low power issue fixed, and that got us a drone update with it. So we'll talk about that and what's in there.
Mads Tech, a famous Englishman.
Yes.
As we learned on my live stream yesterday. He's Welsh.
Welsh, okay, there we go.
My bad.
Got to be careful. So DARPA shot down a drone, but they did it with confetti. So
not lasers.
Not lasers.
Okay.
It's definitely the last thing I expected when I saw the video. So.
Yeah, we got video of them shooting a drone down with a confetti cannon, which, I mean, it's DARPA, so you'd think they know what they're talking about.
That's one way to do it.
Yeah.
IGOW 3, we've got an IGOW 3 update. We'll talk about IGOW 3 again for anybody who isn't in the know. We'll talk about where it's at, the numbers, and the prize pool, over $11,000. So
yeah,
pretty crazy.
That's a huge prize pool. Of course, and there's still time to enter. So we'll do a little signal boost there in case you haven't entered and you might want to.
Yeah, I think you've got a prize in there too.
I do. I'm one of the sponsors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then last but not least, we'll have a little rant/informational section about iFlight's new backpack, which might look like an old backpack.
Yeah, it looks a lot like it looks like they stole some of the borrowed some of the greatest ideas from Torvol. So we'll take a look at that backpack and we will rant a little bit about whether that's okay.
Yeah.
All right. Let's dive right in. And we got a lot on the schedule today. We may go long, but I definitely don't want to rush through this one because this is humongous news. The source code for FalcoX and a whole bunch of other FlightOne stuff, but the source code for FalcoX was leaked, and people have been digging through it. And the first thing I want to say about this is that, it's not okay to hack and steal private information. When you remember when somebody's iCloud was hacked and all those nudes got leaked.
Yes.
And one of the things people said was, I know you want to go look at them, but it's not okay that this happened. And if you're a good person, you won't go look at them. And then everyone went and looked through them anyway. And that's kind of what's happened here. But I just want to start by going on record and saying that this is not okay. And FalcoX or FlightOne is absolutely a victim here of corporate espionage or even a crime. Who knows? Yeah. Having said that, let's talk about what's in the leak because it's out there.
So obviously when your source code leaks for a flight controller software, the first thing that's going to happen is everyone who knows anything about flight controller software is going to pour over it if they are interested and they feel like that's something they should do. So a lot of people did that. At least quite a few people did that I saw. And the main takeaway from this, let's put real quick, there's a statement from the leaker.
Okay,
let's put that
we'll put that up. Sure thing.
Yeah. So the leaker is anonymous. We don't know who it was. It wasn't related to the project. And he says here on the project, no affiliation with Nick or anyone there. I just fucking hate what they did to RS2K, which is an old drama from like 2016.
Yeah, that's Colin Dorr, the original race flight developer.
I hate that they constantly lie to the community and everyone involved. The only person I feel sorry for it in all of it is Hydra, and that's Dominic Clifton, we've talked about before on the show. So that being said, it does look like there was a lot of lying going on. If you
I know you're going to keep saying that word, and I'm not going to stop you from saying it, but I want to say to all the defamation lawyers out there that don't sue us. Okay.
Sure.
In your opinion, there was some lying going on.
In my opinion, and everyone who watches these videos' opinion might end up being, there was a lot of lying going on. So if you look at these videos, they talk a lot about the AI filter and the AI in the H7. and that the AI will cause you to not use PIDs, which is in a video we linked.
Yeah, here I'm gonna put that 52-second timestamp up. Is that what you're referring to? Yeah. So let me put that up. Hang on 1 second.
Okay.
This is a timestamp to a specific statement that you take issue with.
But what it is essentially is it's a replacement for the PID controller. It no longer is using a PID controller on the most part, although we've managed to preserve the way a PID controller is kind of tuned. So it will tune similarly to a PID controller, but it actually isn't running a PID controller on the most part.
Is that the relevant statement?
Yeah. I mean, basically the idea is that somehow this is making it so your AI is doing something other than the PIDs. Like the PIDs are no longer functioning to make flight happen, and that is not the case. I mean, they've dug through the code now, and we can see that is totally not the case.
It's just a PID controller.
It's just a PID controller. And the other big thing is AI filtering. The other video I've linked goes through a lot of it, and there's like, the whole video is basically a timestamp. You can watch the first 25 minutes of the video, and much of it appears to be lies. If you look through and see, unfortunately, like they talk about how the AI filter goes through and reads pack after pack and learns more about your quad. That is downright not in the code. They talk about how there's AI tuning so that it looks at your filters and changes those filters. The only effect of that is a fast Fourier transform, and the only effect of that is dynamic notch, which is something Betaflight has.
What I read I got some notes from people who had looked through it, and they said basically that the AI filter is a fast Fourier transform to identify resonance or frequency spikes, and then a dynamic notch, which is something that Betaflight has had for a while. And more specifically, that according to you, they have specifically denied that that's what they're doing.
In this video, they bash the dynamic notch. In this video, they talk about how Betaflight's dynamic notch is a bad idea, how they shouldn't be using it. They've told people in private and other situations that they do not use dynamic notch. It's not something they've implemented. And then when we look at the code, we can see, hey, it's just dynamic notch. I don't take an issue with them using dynamic notch, how FlightOne flies. I don't take an issue with anything about the software other than the fact that they're telling users that there's all these AI features. They use the word, they use a lot of the word, the phrase, I can't remember exactly. I'm sorry, I don't want to misquote it. It's essentially AI learning.
Machine learning.
Yeah, there's a term you use with AI. I don't want to use the wrong term. So anyway, but they just say a lot of terms that are just clearly not at play here.
I don't. There's nothing wrong with them using dynamic notch, obviously, and there's nothing. Even personally, it leaves a bad taste in my mouth when a company uses kind of hype-tastic, because somebody, TXBone66 in the Discord says AI is not defined. It maybe, define AI. So, okay, they're going to take some liberties with marketing and they're going to give things fancy names. But to go out there and say dynamic notch is garbage, Betaflight is garbage because they use dynamic notch when you're using dynamic notch. I mean, if that's what's in the code, that's a kind of hypocritical.
Yeah, I think if they had just said AI filter and left it vague, that's one thing. But if they made a 50-minute video,
I mean, we would still be making fun of them.
Yeah, they made
for calling the dynamic notch an AI filter. We'd be like, come on, guys.
Sure, but they made a 50-minute video about AI filtering and all these features that it has, and learning pack after pack and understanding. It's just none of that seems to be in play here, and it is unfortunate that maybe that stuff was planned or was going to happen. So. But to the users, it certainly was presented as though it was the case.
Let me play devil's advocate here.
Sure.
Do we know that this code base is well? Obviously, I mean, somebody didn't make a whole fake code base, but so it probably is a FalcoX code base. Do we know that it's not from like 2 years ago?
My understanding is people who've looked at it said it is very recent from the things that they've seen in the code, but I haven't seen it to verify that personally myself.
Yeah, okay. I wouldn't know how to verify it. So what else? Let's see. There's another question here in the Discord, which is, was anything borrowed from open source projects? Is there any GPL code in there? Has anybody reported that?
Nobody has identified any specific GPL code. It's just things that were rewritten essentially for, like, it appears that they did rewrite the dynamic notch code from what I understand. I don't think anybody was able to pull the same code out of it and match it up or anything like that. But then it's only been out for, I believe, like a day, so I don't really know too much about it.
Okay.
Yeah. Other than that, I just Go Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I just want to say, like, we're not here to like shit on people. Like,
No.
Sometimes we rant and sometimes we get mad, but like, I feel very strongly about lying or misleading users. And like, this is something that seems, after watching these videos, spending a lot of time digging through people, like digging through the code, looking at takes on this, looking at analysis of the code and how these filters work and all these kind of things. I mean, there's just a basic misunderstanding of them talking about filters in the video. Like, when you watch the AI filtering video, they don't understand the filter concepts that they're discussing. And so when they say this or that is bad, and then they use it later because they find out it's better, it's like, it's just so misleading to the user. And I don't think any of that was ever clarified or adjusted or told to anybody. And yeah, it's just unfortunate. So I just kind of wanted to make sure that that's clear, that we're not like, I don't want to bash on somebody. I just want to like be clear that like, I think this is there's a basis here.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is, of course, the power of open source and the power of closed source. I mean, the power of closed source is that you can say you're doing whatever this is the second time now that FlightOne's code has leaked. And both times people sort of dug into it and examined what they were doing. Now, we should say that there have been some interesting things discovered here. Like, for example, sim mode. One of the things sim mode does, if I remember correctly, is that when the PID error is beyond a certain threshold, it basically disables the D and the I term and only uses P term to push back and reduce the PID error. Which people, and of course I'm not a coder, I don't write PID flight control software, but people I've talked to who do have said, that's actually really clever. Well, you should give that a try. And so there is definitely some interesting and innovative stuff in here, which sort of makes it all the more frustrating when you go around saying you have AI filtering and it's just dynamic notch filtering.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just unfortunate. Again, like, marketing is marketing, but then there's also like explaining the marketing in the wrong way becomes misleading. So yeah, again, there's a bunch of cool stuff in here, and maybe it seems like a lot of that stuff may end up in open source places and with rewrites.
Sure.
And
which is not to say that anyone's stealing code.
Right.
But to say that by looking at the code, they go, oh, that's an interesting concept. Let's try that out. And then they write the, as you do.
And again, I just want to say also, this is very new. This is like in the last like 24 hours or something, 36 hours that this leaked. So, as we go farther in this, maybe more people have more information or have a better understanding of everything that happened. I believe, don't quote me on this, but my understanding is FlightOne is getting authorities involved. So if that is the case, then yeah, something may come of that, and they may figure that out. Again, like, we don't condone the hacking. We're just looking at the after effect of that.
Yeah. Yeah, the whoever it was who decided to hack this stuff, there's no question that that's not. I mean, there's no justification for that. That is an act of, call it, what do you want to call it? Civil disobedience, an act of, that you're breaking the law. You know that you're doing the wrong thing. You think you have a good reason for doing it.
Yeah, I think malice is, it's like it's directed malice or whatever. Yeah, it definitely is like they had a backing. I don't know. It seems like old blood, I guess, is the best way to put it. It seems like somebody was mad from a while ago from the quote and the statement, and unfortunately that came back. And we would never condone anything like that. So hopefully they get it figured out. All
right. Well, I mean, nothing you can do to put that genie back in the bottle, but just keep developing code, right, and keep making it better. I'm going to say one more thing though, and that is, this is the second time now that this has happened, that their code has been leaked, and every time, all this marketing stuff with fancy names, and it turns out it's seldom like this crazy groundbreaking thing that lives up to the marketing. So I sometimes get a little flack because I'm always a little cynical about the extremity of their marketing. I'm like, just call it what it is. And this just reinforces that for me. So, all right. Anything else to say about this before we move on?
Nope. I think we covered it pretty well. So.
All right. Cool. Next up, let's talk about Tmotor, or should I say Axis Motors.
Yeah. So it looks like Vivian Tan and another employee, and also Damien Gans now, this kind of ties into the next story a little bit, but are all part of Axis Motors now, which is a new motor company, which appears to be selling some motors. They sponsored some racing pilots and other pilots. A VS Quad. So
Yeah.
they've got antennas coming out now. So it seems like they're forming it's another FPV company here.
Yeah, when I heard Vivian Tan left Tmotor, I was kind of like, what? She's been with Tmotor. She just kind of has been Tmotor in my mind in a lot of ways. So the idea that she could leave and go to another company kind of blew my mind. But they've left. They've formed Axis Motors, so they're trying to sell motors and make motors. I don't think they're in stores yet, as far as I know.
Yeah, I think they're just selling them on their website, and they send them to pilots. So.
Yeah, so maybe they'll be good motors. I mean, who knows? We know that Tmotor makes good motors, or do they? That's the next bit. So I think it's a real question of what kind of IP they took with them, what kind of talent they took with them when they left. Did they take someone who knows how to set up a factory and make motors? Is it
right?
Could it all just be a sham? Could it just be like a rebrand? Maybe they're all. Who knows? Anyway,
I don't know.
New motors.
From my understanding on the other side, I don't think that's the case. But
no.
Yeah. So, and then Damien Gans, Blackbird FPV, announced today, like 11, 12 hours ago, that he's moving his signature lines over to Axis. So his V3 will be made with Axis. And he also, basically, like a few hours after that, put out this message that we're seeing now, where he identified some issues with his Tmotor BB V2, the Blackbird V2. He's going to make a video about it tomorrow, so you can definitely stay tuned to his socials for that. But basically, he's saying that, like, hey, my motors have issues. He identified a magnet that is clearly not correct, and then he said he's seen a lot of these. He found multiple batches with incorrect magnets and placement, and he's had multiple motors burn up his own stacks. And
it looks like the magnet's like literally a different size, doesn't it?
Yes, I believe they were saying it's the Velox magnet that ended up in there somehow, but I'm not sure if they were able to identify that. So,
yeah, wow. So he's moving away from Tmotor, and I guess he's going to go to Blackbird, or rather, Axis Motors.
Just he said he said his new motors, his V3 motor, and I think his V2 prop will be made with Axis. So.
Okay, well, good luck to him. Obviously, they if they have Tmotor's pedigree, then they probably know how to make a great motor, and it'll just be a question of getting them in pilots' hands, testing them out, and seeing how they can sort of execute.
Yes. Yeah. Right. It'll be interesting to see what happens, but I'm excited to hear. The pilots that I've seen getting the Axis motors, and then I think Gal Kramer did thrust testing on them. They look pretty solid, so I'm interested to see how they crash and how they work out.
Haxed in the Discord is saying, can't find any new information about the hack. Well, what are the sources? Haxed, there was all the source code was uploaded to a private GitHub repo, and then a whole bunch of people like me and Mark Spatz and Quick Flash and a whole bunch of other people got invites to the GitHub repo. At this point, the GitHub repo is been taken down as far as I know, but like it was a whole GitHub repo with all of the source. It's not just like some freaking screen grabs. So
yeah, it was FalcoX configurator, FlightOne. It was like a whole suite, basically all the stuff.
Yeah, so it was a legit leak. It was legit. At the moment, I think the GitHub repo is down, but presumably people have copied it. So, yeah. All right. Well, we got something a little bit lighter as a palate cleanser.
Yeah.
Here in the middle of the stream. This is the new antenna from TrueRC. Oh yeah, it looks like an X-Air, doesn't it?
Yeah, they have a new X-Air and X-Air at 1.3. So if you need the 1.3 gigahertz.
Where's the freaking picture?
The second.
The second one. Yeah. Why is it $150? Well, does this help explain it?
Yeah, so obviously this is for your ground station, something like that. Not going to go on a goggle. 1.3 typically is not going to go on a goggle anyway.
Yeah.
But I think that's pretty cool. I like it.
Yeah, that's a big ass antenna. 1.3 gigahertz, man, goes a long freaking way. Is that Hugo? I don't know what Hugo looks like.
Not 100% sure.
Okay. All right. Well, there you go. A big ass 1.3 gigahertz antenna. Yay, TrueRC. I saw that and I was like, why is this X-Air so expensive? Yeah. because it's enormous.
All right.
Yeah, that is Hugo, says Philip Rodelic. Okay. Yeah. Don't mount that on your goggles.
No.
All right, Blunty, you got a camping trip, an FPV camping trip coming up. Tell us about it.
Yes. So in Harstall, Colorado, there's an FPV camping trip come up. They do it every year. I think they missed last year because of Corona, but this year it is back on. So up in Harstall, Colorado, out in BLM land, Bureau of Land Management land, they do a camping trip. There's a Google Maps pin, so you can figure out where it is. Then there's a group on public on Facebook, so you can join and communicate with anybody about it. But basically, just a huge open space. Everybody's planning to meet up there June 25th around noon, and just camp out and fly. So there's also a private event if you're part of COFPV, so you can have that as well. And yeah, there's a pin there. So kind of out in the middle of nowhere. There's plenty of cool land out there. Nobody's going to bog you.
Yeah, BLM
Tons
is
of
like
long
that.
range. Yeah, whatever you need to do. So.
Yeah, wow. Well, there's roads, so that's nice.
Yes.
Sort of roads, trails. Are they paved? Are they paved, or are they just roads?
I think they're paved almost all the way out there. I think those
Oh.
are dirt.
Yeah, okay. No bathrooms, it says, so it's going to be rugged camping.
Yes.
What's the nearest town?
Harstall, I think, but I'm not sure.
Here we go. Rawhide, Colorado. Yep, there it is. All one building of it.
If you have any questions or anything like that, though, you can definitely go in that group if you're interested in going and shoot a comment on there. They can help you out, figure out your organization, logistics, maybe get a ride up there if you need it, that sort of thing.
There's also some YouTube video here posted by Jay Hendricks, which is the 2020 meet. Is that in the show notes, Plenty?
Oh, I did not put that in the show notes.
I'll paste that in the chat. People can check out a little view of what it's like. But it's always nice to get together with people who are flying and fly in a cool location. And so if you're in the area and can make it, it sounds like fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, we got one other piece of Colorado-related news, and that is our weekly WeBleedFPV Whoop Racing update. Blunty, your team, the Gratuitous Violets, has been racing in the last few weeks. And I think every week you've gotten either first or second place. Is that right?
That's true, yes.
And the last few weeks you've gotten second place.
That's true, yeah. First 3 weeks we got third.
Yeah.
On the last 3 weeks we got second.
Leading people to wonder if you're just kind of, preparing to pounce for the final.
Yes.
Well, how'd you do this week?
We got first. We beat them. We beat the Decepticons. Took it in for first. Yeah, so it's pretty exciting. I'm glad we finally got it. I'll just say that. It was getting really close. We were going to be down to 1 point if it was first and second again.
Yeah.
So yeah, now we're at 3 points apart. So basically, we just have to get fourth. We'd have to get fourth, and they get first, and then we'll.
And those points are important because they seed you for the finals. So you really want to be first seed into the finals.
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah.
There's
so
like
for first seed in the finals, the worst we can do is get second place overall by losing in that relay. So
there's like $3,000 in prizes, so it's kind of a big deal.
Yeah, $3,500. Yep.
Wow. What's first place going for?
I'm not sure. I haven't laid exactly what they are, but yeah, it's split between everybody proportionally. So
Gotcha.
It's gonna be good. I think I'm pretty excited about it.
Well, congratulations on getting first. And looks like you're in good shape to be. I think you're pretty much a shoo-in for a first place seed if you need to finish fourth or better, since you have never finished worse than second.
Yes, I think we're going to do it. I think we're going to be good, and we'll go first seed in the finals. So I'm pretty excited, but we still got to keep it together. So we'll see what happens.
Okay, good luck, Blunty. Keep it together. Yep. We'll find out next. Is it next week? Is the final week, or is next
week will be week 8? Yep, and then finals the week after that.
Okay, well, I'm going to miss these updates when they go away.
Yeah.
Cool. Coming up next, we got some community spotlights, stuff that people in the community are working on, projects and so forth. Blunty, why don't you start us off?
All right. So the first community spotlight comes from MarioFPV. So he made a Raspberry Pi 3B Mini OpenHD board. So basically, you got a Raspberry Pi Mini, and they're tiny, but they don't have a lot of power. And then you got a Raspberry Pi 3B, right? And they have plenty of power and they can run OpenHD, but they're big and annoying. So he's like, well, let's just slap them together. So he made the 3B Mini. So he basically got the form factor so that he can mount it on a 30 by 30 under or in his quad. And now he has OpenHD on a nice little board. Right there, pocketed in his build.
This is really interesting because once you start getting down to that 30 millimeter form factor, you start to be looking like something that might be a video transmitter, an HD video transmitter in a mini quad.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So, and the other cool thing about this is price. So you can order this board, this specific OpenHD board you're seeing in the video, for $17 plus $3 shipping. If you order from China and just have them place everything for you.
This is a custom-made board, like a PCB.
Yeah, he built this. Yeah, this is not like a Raspberry Pi you can buy. So he built a PCB design. Or he's also selling them on AliExpress. And the AliExpress link, basically they add a new baseboard to the setup and cooling on the AliExpress board. And so it's like $50. And you get a shell and all kinds of stuff that attaches to the board, like wires and connectors and such. But it actually supports a better quality camera with that board. So,
in case people don't know what we're looking at here, this is the OpenHD project, which is an open source project to do HD FPV, and currently it still has a long way to go before it would be good for FPV. Like I think in the show notes, you said the latency was about 50 to 80 milliseconds, which many people would consider to be too much. But it's pretty exciting what we see it doing here, nevertheless.
Yeah, it's definitely not like, especially for long range or smaller stuff that you just want to send. I think it's really great for that. It seems like a solid option. It's not perfect. There's definitely problems with it, but for the price, it's just super killer.
Yeah.
And it's open.
And there's a lot of room to get better, is the bottom line. There's a lot of room to get better. So, alrighty. Very cool. Blunty, there's a question. There's a question about where people can see your whoop racing. You want to take that?
Oh, sure. Yeah, we've linked it in the show notes before. I'll put it up again, but it's Perspective Image on YouTube. Every week they stream the We Bleed Whoop series, which is the series we're in every week.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, so Perspective Image.
I'll paste that in the chat, but you can see that right here. Is this that's the YouTube channel, isn't it? Yeah.
Yep.
Here we go. Team Whoop Sim Series Week 7. So you can watch the whole thing.
Yeah, so we've got it all on there. If you wanted to check it out at any point. But yeah, every week they stream it. It's 4 p.m. MST is when we start. It goes for a couple hours. It's actually pretty fast. Some of these series are pretty slow. They try to move everybody around pretty fast. So we get done in like hour and a half, 2 hours for the whole thing. So
nice. Another person was asking what you fly. What's it's
a spec series. Yeah, it's a sim and it's a spec series. So it's the Newbie drone Acro B, the B-Brain brushless. There we go.
In Velocidrone. Yeah. Okay. Awesome. You do fly a real whoop though, like in real races, live races.
Yeah, the last race I just had a B-Brain brushless. At this point, I don't know what I would buy. Everything I have is like 9 months old. I just have a pile of whoop stuff, so I just flown everything that I still have.
That's how it is, though. That's how it is, right? Have there been any really good racing whoops that come out?
I don't think since like we had B-Brain brushless, the Hummingbird F4 Pro, that's board issues. I think they fixed some of those, but I've definitely heard some issues still. And then we got the B-Brain brushless V2, so that's the 1S2S with the external receiver. Other than that, then we just had Mobula 6.
Right.
And then we had Mob 6 Lite, but you don't really want to race the lights, or at least I wouldn't race the light, because I'd be worried about crashing it.
I'm certainly not deep in tune with the whoop racing community, but when I think back, I think, Mob 6, Beta FPV Meteor 65, and whichever. Newbie drone actually is they move a little quicker, but I can't think of another like really good racing whoop since the Mob 6, the Meteor 65, and whatever Newbie drone has done lately that I haven't kept up with. So
yeah, I think the newest one from them is still that B-Brain brushless V2. I think a lot of the corona and different shortages have really come to hurt them too. So
Hacks says Fractal Engineering has a new whoop out.
okay,
Check that out. Okay. Next community spotlight. This is a tool organizer for your Torvol backpack. He sent me this because he knew I had a Torvol backpack. I still do. This is a tool organizer. This is a 3D printed tool organizer. Let me see if I can get a bigger picture here. No, because the internet hates me and doesn't want me to.
Oh, there's a top right of that thing. There's a little invisible.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, that's fantastic. Still
That's the
can't
best.
open it. No, still can't. F you. Yeah, so we're looking down at the top of the bag from here, first of all. Right? This is the top compartment. It's pretty... It's clever. Boy, it seems like it's taken up a lot of space. Though.
It's a decent amount of space. I'll say the thing that I always have an issue with on the backpacks is like, even with the ones that are made for places to put screwdrivers and stuff, it seems like when you hit a certain amount of those awkwardly shaped tools, stuff just starts poking through or stabbing you when you grab in. I don't know. I notice that all the time, and I just kind of deal with it. I just assume that I'm gonna like stab my arm when I reach in for my tweezers. This does prevent a lot of that. So I think if you have the room, this is a pretty solid option. And obviously, you kind of have to have all the tools that he has there too.
Oh, he's got more. He's got more pictures here as well. Thank you to the chat for pointing that out. There's more pictures here. We can see. Go ahead, Blunty.
But yeah, I think if you have even most of these tools, I mean, I have most of these tools. It's a pretty basic set. And yeah, this seems like a pretty decent option.
One of the things I notice is that so this is where you're sort of intended to put your controller. At least that's where I put mine. So now with the tools up here, you got to move your controller down. It just is, you're losing so much space. Like, I could get all of these tools into a little, like I have it. Hang on.
Okay.
So like, right here. All right. That's all my tools. There we go. Now, granted, when I want it, I have to go reach in and get it out. But this is so much more space efficient. And it's not like that's a gigantic backpack with tons of space to spare. Although I guess if you're just going to like fly on a Saturday, maybe you don't need to fit everything. So it's interesting.
Yeah. Kind of works as your little workbench. You can lay it out on the, when you get there, everything's already there for you to work. So
yeah, I do like that little. Just set it out. That's clever. It's clever. I'm not sure it's for me, but it is clever, and I'm happy to show it off. What's next?
All right. So last up on the community spotlights, we've got ExperimentalFPV, who's testing arm shapes. And it's pretty cool because we got somebody else doing some sim models, man. I'm excited. Chris Rosser hit us with some sim stuff and some analysis and gave us some information. And now we've got ExperimentalFPV doing the same thing. So this isn't quite as advanced as Chris Rosser stuff, but this definitely is applicable. I actually touched base with Chris Rosser real quick about this just to make sure, because I don't know anything about modeling.
Right. Is he doing it right? Is he screwing up in some way?
Yeah, and he said this is fine. He said the numerical results probably don't work. The 100 millimeters isn't probably accurate, but like the scales and ratios and the conclusions that you're drawing are perfectly, they work perfect. And it seems like a good analysis of the situation.
Yeah. Very interesting stuff. What's the conclusion? Is there a takeaway?
Conclusion is that basically you would think, right, that we've heard before that like in some situations a curved arm would be stronger than a straight arm because the curve would absorb some of the impact, right? That's kind of the idea, is that there's some like absorption in the impact from a curve. And that would be true if you could use the same amount of material or more material for the curve. But the problem, and he describes, is basically as you build your curve, you have to have material to fill in to be structurally integral to get around in the curve. And by filling in that material, you take material away if you have the same volume from the actual arm integrity and stiffness. And so because you're taking it away to move it into those extra areas to provide the stiffness around the curve, you end up losing overall strength in the arm.
Interesting. Interesting. Is the takeaway then that kind of how we're doing it is optimal, or is there a deep insight there that says, oh, we should be doing it differently?
Basically, it was him discovering why, like, hey, you should not be curving your arms, and kind of teaching us why as well. Something I hadn't really considered before, for sure. And this is why, like, you can see Rosser's frame, or these squares, that we talked about before, are basically these squares. And that's what he shows as, like, the strongest, basically.
Chris makes the argument that for stiffness, certainly for stiffness, I'm not sure about for strength, but maybe for strength, that the closer you can get to a square tube, the better. And that these wide flat arms that we use have worse resonance characteristics. And that's reflected in his AOS 5 frame.
Yeah, so cool to see. I love to see this analysis. I want to see more of it.
It's always nice to see people doing that kind of analysis. Thank you so much to, what's that guy's name?
Experimental FPV.
Yeah, awesome.
Go give him a subscription. He's only got like a few, so.
Yeah, go check out that video. Link down below in the show notes.
Yes.
Mini FPV wants to know, what about tube arms? What did he say about tube arms, Blunty?
I think he had that chart up earlier. He had a little chart there.
Regardless of the effect, we'll go take a look. But regardless, tube arms, they're not very strong, right? We know that.
Yeah, I think in his displacement, like stiffness test, tube arms did very well.
Yeah, tube arms are very good. Tubes are very good for stiffness versus weight. I'm not a materials expert, but that's my sort of colloquial understanding. Because tubes are very good for stiffness versus weight, but in terms of like strength, they don't do as well, because as soon as you like puncture that shell, then you have a problem.
Yeah, that's what he was saying. Basically, like it becomes hard to find ways to interlock arms, to mount motors, to mount to the frame, without making structural issues.
Right, and tubes are super expensive to manufacture as well. Sheet carbon is easy. Tubular carbon is pretty expensive.
Yeah. Overall, though, I think it had the best performance of any of the models as a single solid bar.
Yeah. Well, that's probably why you see, as you get to larger quads, or multi-rotors, they were pretty much always use tubular members. Yeah. I've seen some like 10-inch quads with big, long carbon fiber flat carbon, and it's 6mm carbon. But I'm like, nah. I feel like you need to be doing something different at that point.
Yeah.
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 All right, great. Next up, Runcam has released a new camera for DJI. Still trying to get in that DJI game. DJI is in love with CADX, and Runcam is trying to steal them away, I guess.
Yes, they're trying.
They got this new Runcam MIPI camera. Let's take a look at it.
Yes. So, I've got quite a bit of information here. So basically, Runcam came and they said, hey, we got the Runcam MIPI. So the Runcam MIPI, is MIPI, MIPI, which is a standard for like the video basically, but not for the connector or the pinout, is what I understand about MIPI. Okay. So like the connectors don't have to match. There's no standard for connectors. There's no like MIPI 1, MIPI 2, MIPI 3.
Oh, okay.
It's just like whatever the companies make is MIPI, and whatever the pinouts they decide. And then the video has to apply to some kind of standard if you use standard MIPI.
So MIPI is like NTSC. It's a video standard. It's a data transmission standard. It's not a connector or a cable standard.
Yeah, it's digital, so I don't know enough to know exactly how that works or what becomes standard about it. So I don't want to talk too much out of turn there.
Sure.
But basically, from what we can tell, the DJI system just accepts MIPI. And that's something the FPV Out crew is looking at currently.
Does it? I'd always thought that, I don't know why I thought this. I thought it like cryptographically authenticated the camera in some way.
So that's the thing we'll talk about. So there's another chip in there. There's an AP1302 chip. And so if you pull up the third link I have in there, the GitHub link for the useful images, we'll take a look quickly at the camera PCBs for the DJI cameras. So I took some images. We got some images from other people today. Basically, if you look at these are the 3 cameras that all have the feature set. And the feature set means like, hey, you can change the settings. It can go low latency mode, and they do 120 frames a second. If you look at these all have that black chip on them. Mm-hmm. this black chip, apparently, from what we can tell, and looking through code, is the AP1302 chip. The AP1302 chip will essentially, the AP1302 chip will essentially communicate to the DJI VTX like, hey, everything's cool. You can give them permission to have all the good settings, from what we can tell.
The
So
settings being the ability to change between, like if we think about the Caddx Vista Nano, Nebula Nano, it did not have the ability to go to 4.3. It did not have the ability to go to low latency. You couldn't even change the exposure. It was just locked down camera. You couldn't change any of the settings. That's what you mean when you say change the settings.
Yes, it seems like basically you're going to plug this camera in, just like the Racer 4 or the Nano or the Micro, the Nebula Nano or the Nebula Micro. It seems like basically you're essentially going to plug in, and when you plug in, it's going to send whatever video it sends. So the sensor is going to send the sensor's info, and that's what you're going to get. There's no like tweaking or settings or changes. And maybe if they had this chip, from what we can tell, this chip would enable that, and that's why the better cameras can do it. So I actually put another link in there if you check out the fourth link there, the Imager link.
Okay.
Just so you can see. I also put in the Nebula Micro and the Racer 4, and you can see they don't have that big black square chip present on them.
So this idea, Runcam, when Runcam released the Racer 4, there was some speculation that they had like copied some cryptographic key or something from the Caddx Vista. Otherwise, how could they possibly work with the air unit? Yeah. But it sounds like that's not the case, that the air unit will accept a MIPI feed from anything.
95%, I think, is where we're at on that. Yeah, is that's the case. So I think that's something that the FPV out guys and other people will be looking at to see if that's the case. Because we did, as you showed earlier, if you go back to that third link again, or that fifth link, I guess it's the same thing, is directly linked to it. There is it'll be the next link on there. Basically has a pinout for the pin, for the connector on the DJI. So this was just gotten the last couple days from D3VL was able to source this. And it looks like that will be like the way that we can find out if it will take MIPI or not and what the restrictions will be. So
this could theoretically open the door to other third-party cameras working with the air unit or the Vista, although you wouldn't have the ability to adjust the settings. Is that right? Because you wouldn't have that chip.
Yeah, but the AP, so that's the other thing. The AP1302 does seem like it's publicly available, like an open source possible way. So that's also something they're going to look at and see if there's a way to like get the extra settings, if that's encrypted. I don't know. There's still a lot of questions up in the air, but it's interesting to see this camera come out because it kind of tweaked all the other information and makes us think like, hey, maybe there's other things going on. As far as the Runcam MIPI camera, just to review, basically what they've said is, hey, this is going to be 60 frames a second only, which from my understanding of what they said, I did not get a clear 100% answer because it's kind of translated. But they said it seems like it's going to be HQ only. It's 60 frames per second only. Low latency is 120. So it should be HQ only. And they said it definitely will not be able to change any of the camera settings. So just like we were talking about, it'll basically just be the Racer 4, but they're saying improved. So it's possible the sensor might be better, but we don't know that's the case.
Well, that's the big thing. I mean, the Racer 4, at least it was dual analog/digital. So if you bought it and you know, this one is digital only. And there were claims that Caddx or DJI would in some way lock out the Racer 4 and make it not work. That never manifested, though, did it?
No, and if you think about it, how could that happen? Because if the original claim was true, or if any claim is true, right, if there is some key in there that you could lock out, the key had to be gotten from somewhere, right? It's not being generated somehow to Runcam over time. They're not getting new keys.
No,
so that means they have to invalidate keys on old Caddx cameras, right?
Right, that's what I said. You can't lock out if they had stolen a cryptographic key from Caddx and you lock it out, then you'll also be locking out the Caddx cameras, although some people argued you could do it based on serial number, at least in theory.
Maybe.
Who knows? Yeah, but it never happened, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
The big question is this a good camera?
Right, and I think the answer is, so we do have a link. The first link there is actually a link to footage from the camera that Runcam posted, but it is YouTubed up. So
being better than the Runcam, than the Caddx Nebula Nano is not a very high bar, but this is a micro-sized camera, right? It's a it's not going to compete with the Nano. Let's take a look. Now we're going to watch a YouTube video that has then been restreamed, so the image quality is going to be... Go to the link down in the show notes. Hang on. It's going to look like crap to you guys because it's being restreamed, but... oh, the colors look nice. The quality, the image quality is, of course, that's not the camera. The colors look really nice. The exposure looks nice. I mean, I'm disappointed that I can't have it in low latency mode. So it looks better than the Nebula Nano, I'll say that.
Yeah, the lower frame rate HQ only is likely, again, what that means. And that, to me, is kind of a deal breaker. But I'm interested to see if it is like a better sensor or if it's closer to the Pro. That would be nice, for sure.
Yeah. The Philip Rodelic says you can bump up the saturation on the Nebula Pro to look like this. Yeah, the Nebula Pro, the real deal breaker to me is that ghosting / haloing, which is, I think it's actually has more to do with the lens than the sensor, but... Yeah.
And then I'll say one other thing. A couple of people have said, why, what's up with SharkBite? SharkBite uses MIPI 2, but the problem with that is twofold. One, HD 0, and presumably from what I read in all the old RC groups threads when I learned about SharkBite and I went through everything, Greg said it multiple times, like it basically uses an encryption IC. So basically, if you want to use your camera with SharkBite, you would install an encryption IC from Divimath onto your camera, and that you would buy that from Divimath. That's how HD 0 worked. And then that encryption IC would allow you to use that camera on SharkBite. And then that seems to be corroborated because the person who posted this, Claire Zhao, on Facebook, the Runcam MIPI, also commented that if SharkBite, is okay with it, we would be happy to let this camera work with SharkBite too. Right. That sort of thing. So, and then like I saw a post where she said we will reach out to them and that sort of thing. So I think if it's possible, they'll definitely look into it. But I don't think it's just like, hey, it's cool, do it. I think it's like a design thing.
Well, it'd be great to see a better camera. This looks really good compared to the image quality of the standard, Racer Nano that is used with SharkBite. So, I mean, I hope that they go for that. So, the people, who is it in the chat, says, Philip Rodelic says, it doesn't look better than a Nebula Pro. It's heavier and no settings, hard pass. Philip, but what if it's in stock?
That's also true.
If
better
you could get
Nano,
it.
Probably.
Yeah. Only problem is it's just a camera. So I did hear, and this is not directly related to this news item, but somebody said, Bardwell, you keep bashing the Runcam Nebula Nano, or the Caddx Nebula Nano. He said, you can buy a Caddx Nebula Nano and then buy a Caddx Nebula Pro camera by itself and just swap the camera out. And I was like, does that work? I mean, it doesn't save you money, but if the Nebula Pros and the Vistas are out of stock, that may work.
I think the problem is sourcing the Nebula Pro camera, and then also I think cost is going to be pretty similar there. But yeah, if you can find that, it's definitely a way to go. I've seen a few people doing that for sure.
Haxed in the Discord wants to know, why is it locked to 60 FPS? Short version Haxed, there's a chip that it needs to have before it can access those settings, and it doesn't have that chip.
Yeah, let me pull one more thing real quick before we get off this topic.
Yeah, sure.
Just for completion's sake here, let me grab something. 2 seconds.
Yeah. Ghost Branch thinks the WDR looks pretty good. Ryzix is pointing out that MIPI is used inside cell phones. It's a general data transfer sort of interface. It's not just used for displays and cameras. At the end of the day, digital data is just digital data. Hax, I don't think it's a security chip so much as it is an image processing chip.
Yes.
It's not a security chip.
It seems like it might handle basically hey, if this chip's here, you're cool, is what the software is doing. And then it also seems like it's doing settings. Yeah. So it's also handling settings. I put a new link in there, an Imgur link at the bottom there of that Runcam MIPI section. So if you look here, so I got a bunch of different things I clipped out. But basically, the first one is the no SharkBite at this time. If we can release a new camera for SharkBite, it depends on Fat Shark. We can't decide it. Was the first comment by Runcam, so I just wanted to make sure that was clear. They also said it can be used with a Raspberry Pi at 1080, which is 720 currently, but it needs to be customized for a special customer. So if you see that somewhere, you know that it's not capable of that. It's like a certain thing they have to change to the factory, it seems like. And then also just some questions I asked Claire Zhao. So she said, I said, hey, can you tell us specs? It's locked there, but can it do 120? And she said, no, it needs to be approved by DJI. So just so we can clarify that.
Gotcha.
We should get some confirmation there.
Okay, great.
Yeah, so we'll see what it looks like when it comes out. Hopefully it's not terrible. If it's better than the Nano, that's good for some people because they're still flying the Nano. So
Yeah. I mean, I agree with you there. If it's in stock and you can get it, that's great. The flip side is, like, I would, if there were no other Air units or Vistas anywhere in the world, and I could get a Nebula Nano and this camera, I might give it a go. But not being able to fly in low latency mode and being forced to fly in 69 is really might be a deal breaker for me. So, good to see UAV Tech here. Hope you enjoyed our discussion of the FalcoX leak. I should say, before we get on to the last couple items in the news, there's a post in the Discord of a Facebook comment from Preston Garrison. And I had reached out. I reached out to him last night and it's like, hey, you hear about this leak, and he didn't reply. So I didn't exactly reach out for comment, but I did reach out to him and he didn't say anything. But since he left a comment somewhere on the internet, I thought we should give him a chance to speak for himself. And I assume when he says, I'm not watching, but I assume that he's talking about our live stream. Somebody asked him about our live stream, maybe. Just guessing there. Not watching, but if they've always been trying to copy us, I assume by they, he means the other developers, not our live stream. Since we started, there's no lack of drama in our community. Hey, I mean, I resent that. This is not a case where, like, we're stirring up drama. I mean, the fact that someone stole your code and leaked it is dramatic. That's not, that's not like, obviously we're gonna talk about it. He says he'll make a statement soon and will be reporting the information to the appropriate law enforcement agencies and hope that people have a little class. Good luck with that. Good luck with that. I'm not sure what you mean by have a little class, but I don't know if many people who have been on the receiving end of Preston's irritation would feel that they received class. So, but he's the victim here, so I'm not gonna.
Yeah, we showed a statement there, so they can read what he says.
Okay. He says that code base is old news anyway. Of course, that's what you would say.
Yes. It was just a few weeks away, right? 2 weeks.
Yep. We're just about to come out with these new features. They're going to be so good. Oh, no, that wasn't AI. Oh, that wasn't AI. That was the old. No, of course, that wasn't AI filtering. The real AI filtering was just about to come out. Oh, it's going to be so good. Anyway.
All right.
Okay, let's see here. Blunty.
Another flight control software news, right? We've got
there you go.
Inav 3.0. So we talked a little bit a while back about Inav 3.0. So I think we thought it was actually released, which was kind of unclear from the version names, but hey, I don't use Inav. Now we've learned that Inav is actually officially out as of 3 days ago. Everything's all taken care of and all good to go. It's not a release candidate, it's actually a release. So.
Okay, and we're not, in the interest of time, we've just hit 7 o'clock. So in the interest of time, we're not going to go too, we did talk about that when it hit release candidate, some of the features that they added, but I'm happy to see that come out. If you're flying Inav, definitely get right on that.
Yes.
Now we're going to talk about...
I was just saying, we did a whole feature rundown when we went over it a few weeks ago. So everything there should be very similar to the same feature set.
Posted on the channel. But this is probably one of the second most interesting topic in tonight's live stream, which is a new firmware for DJI that fixes everything. Fixes everything?
No.
Oh.
But some of it fixes some of it, which is not bad.
I'd like to say I'm disappointed that it didn't fix everything, but I'm not. I'm actually like super happy that it fixed anything instead of just ignoring us. So what did we get in this new firmware from DJI?
Okay, well, first of all, I just want to mention that it seems like a big reason we got this update, or we just very lucky, but I'm pretty sure it was the case. Mads Tech got mad, basically, is the best way to put it. Mads Tech has been, making videos on his channel about the DJI goggles. He's been helping people with V2s. He's seen the activation issues. He's been with us. We've reported on some of the videos that he's made previously. And for a long time, he was like, hey, still buy them. They're working on it. I've been talking to their reps. Everything's great. Well, he made a video. He's like, don't buy these things. Stop buying them. Like, this is, I'm done with this stuff. He's like, stop it. And then
I made a similar video a while back. I didn't say stop buying them. I said start sending them back. I said start returning them.
Yeah, and then so he made another video, and he dove deep into the bug that we discussed previously, which was where if you go to low power, suddenly the goggles cut off and they flip into drone mode. And then you can't get them out because you don't have a drone. You're locked.
So
you're locked out of the flip.
So let me paint a picture here, Blunty, for people who may not be keeping up. You get your goggles. They won't activate. You can't get them into FPV mode. Somehow, heroically, you switch them into FPV mode, like you mail the goggles to somebody, or you get the Cyclone FPV DJI drone. You get them into FPV mode, you get them activated, you are using them. One day you leave your battery plugged in, you forget, you run the battery all the way down to 0, and when you get back the next morning, they're back in FPV drone mode, and you are screwed again.
Yep.
That has happened.
Yeah, and Mads Tech went as far as to dig all the stuff out and went through and verified this with a bench power supply over and over again. He documented in this video that we linked in the description. He went over all the different things that happen when it goes down to low. There's some loss of features and functions in the goggles, but basically ends up happening is they black out, and when you boot them back up, they boot into drone mode and you can't switch back. So
yeah,
he complained, he made this video, he got everybody mad about it, and he basically got heated with his DJI rep. And after a lot of communication with his DJI rep, he was actually able to get this fixed. So the patch that we got has the fix for this problem in it. And now what happens is if the DJI goggles lose low power, they still have the same issue. They still get weird and black out and stuff. But the bootloader now loads the other mode first.
So it loads FPV mode first.
Correct, yeah. So it will not load the drone mode first. It will boot into FPV mode. And also, it seems like if you end up in drone mode, now you can switch back, and that feature has been added.
Oh my God. So they fixed one problem, but they still haven't fixed the activation problem.
Yes, it does seem
where you need the drone to activate. Sometimes, not always.
I was going to say,
sometimes for some reason.
So I'll give a shout out real quick. I did ask Ian Madstech earlier, and he said he still wants to find somebody who needs an activation, who hasn't been able to activate. So if you're one of those people stuck waiting on a drone, you just got V2s and they don't work, if you can update to the latest and flip to the mode, that would be confirmation that this does work and there's no activation issues anymore. Currently, we think it does not fix the issue. And currently, we think that you will still have an activation problem. The other issue this does not fix is when you flip into between the modes, you lose all your binding. And
yeah, that's not fixed.
That still happens, and his DJI rep seemed to indicate this was some kind of core issue, and this wouldn't be fixable. So,
I mean, it's not that hard to bind. It's still super freaking annoying if you have a bunch of quads.
Yeah, I mean, if you're trying to use these goggles for what they're meant to do, which is both things,
yeah,
and then you flip between the both things, and yeah, we've talked about that.
If you have a lot of quads, it's going to be really annoying the first time you go to fly and they're not bound. So then you just push the button, you're good to go. But it's freaking annoying. I
will say, though, surprisingly, we did get other updates to the drone. So they didn't just update the issues. You know, they added a couple other things. So they've added, hey, some subtitle stuff. Now there's new Find My Drone functionality.
And this one, I know we got a video here from Discord, so I'm just going to show the video. I know I think you're just about to say this.
Great.
An actual proper disarm switch.
Yeah, so we bitched about this in a rant. And now they've added in a feature where you can configure the C2 switch to start or stop motors with a single switch. So no longer has the issue we talked about where you have to double tap and you're in the wrong mode and all that stuff. Now you can just disarm with a switch in manual.
Yeah. If you're flying in manual mode and your DJI drone flips over, having to how do you disarm it? With the sticks?
Yes.
Hold throttle down? It just freaks out and twitches and convulses until it finally is like, hey, something ain't right here. It's like you can't have manual mode without a disarm switch. So now they finally have one.
Yeah, kudos to them because I didn't expect them to do this. Yeah, this is very cool.
It's so weird.
Yeah.
Like some stuff, they're like, oh yeah, we got you. And you're like, oh, you guys are so nice. How about this other gigantic glaring issue? No, we can't fix that.
Yeah. So also, they added, again, out of the blue, not expected, they added the drone to the Smart Controller app. And it actually uses the old Smart Controller app for video out, which means DigiView also works the same app, no updates needed, for the drone now. So whichever mode your goggles are in, they work for video out.
That's hot. So it used to be that if you had the DJI FPV drone, you could get video out to your phone, but if you had the DJI Smart Controller, it didn't work. And some, maybe you didn't like that. But even if you don't have the DJI Smart Controller, now the DigiView app, which uses that same sort of API, that same interface, can work with it. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I think also, I'll just say, this kind of indicates to me that like they don't really care about the DigiView app.
Right.
Because they could have easily updated the Smart Controller APK and locked us out or done some change to the way the ports work or something. Instead, they're just like, nope, copy paste. Maybe out of laziness, who knows? Because there's probably very little work for them to add this to the drone side. But either way, I'm happy to see they didn't purposely try to block anything, so there has to be more circumvention.
And for I had the thought, well, big deal. So now the DJI FPV drone has DigiView, so you can get the feed on your phone. You could already do that, but DigiView is so much more than just viewing on your phone.
Yes. Yeah, you get all the other things that can run, basically anything to access that feed. So anything that can decode a stream, essentially.
Like I saw an OBS plugin that lets you pull the video feed from the drone over OBS into OBS.
Yeah.
Like I don't know what's a USB interface or what, but it's really exciting to be able to, if you're interested at all in spectating, recording, or streaming, it's really exciting to be able to pull this stuff. So very exciting.
Yeah. And then also some more notes. We have to see how people end up flying with them, but they say they improve the flight safety, so maybe they detect crashes a little better. We showed the issue with crashes when they were trying to disarm, so maybe that's better. And then also they say optimized flight experience in motion controller and also in manual mode. So a lot of people have complained that some of the tuning in manual mode seems a little rough. So hopefully this fixes some of the issues. We'll see.
All right. Well, DJI is listening. They don't always do what you want, but they are listening.
Sometimes randomly DJI will listen.
Right. Still haven't fixed the SD card slow.
And I'm going to say real quick again, like shout out to Mads Tech, however this worked out. I'm so glad that you did this, and kudos to you. So
awesome.
Yeah.
All righty. Let's see here. DARPA shoots down a drone with confetti. These gender reveal parties are really getting out of hand, Blunty.
They sure are. Yes. Yeah, so I basically said, it looks like DARPA threw a party for the drone. Those little confetti cannons you can get where you pull the string.
Yeah. What in the dickens? So this vehicle, this Jeep is driving. The Jeep shoots it's a helicopter. It's got rotor blades. It hovers in the air in front of the drone and then shoots it down with the confetti.
It looks so ridiculous. I mean, and then
the drone is still the drone is still flying. Oh no, there it goes. That's insane.
I had to include that because
that's insane.
Yeah. So this came from an article at Eglin, where I actually used to live down there, pretty close to Eglin in Florida. They did a bunch of testing on some different, mobile asset protection. Basically, they're looking for non-kinetic solutions. And the streamers seem like another way to do that than EMP weapons or microwave stuff. So I think they're looking into like low tech. So if somebody messed up with their electronics or they couldn't get power or whatever, they could shoot this up and shoot streamers at a drone.
There's people in the chat who are being really disparaging of this. And there's two angles that people are taking when they're being disparaging. One is, good thing that drone was just flying straight and slow. You couldn't do that with a real acro drone. And I'm like, well, I mean, obviously, give them time with sufficient application of money. You can figure out solutions. Number two, lots of threats. Let's just call them threats. However you define a drone-related threat, they are done with slow-flying DJI-style drones because it's much easier to buy a DJI drone off the internet than to build an FPV drone. Just because you can't deal with one type of threat doesn't mean it's irrelevant to deal with a different kind of threat. And lastly, I want to say, the idea that drones can sometimes be threats. Let's not just disregard that as if it was total BS because we're big fans of drones. It is meaningful to have defenses against people flying drones in places where, like DARPA, the military, whatever, wouldn't want them to be.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm a loser. Okay, bootlicker. It's an interesting approach to taking it down.
I do. I gotta say, the last thing I expected to see when I loaded that video up was them to shoot those streamers at the drone.
Yeah.
So yeah. Kudos to DARPA for coming up with something I hadn't considered. That's for sure.
I certainly hadn't. Pretty cool. All right, moving on. We got real quick, Blunty. Daniel Cigaro, the organizer of International Game of Whoop, IGOW. He reached out and he asked if we would do a little promotion just to let people know that IGOW 3 is currently still taking entrance. You can still enter IGOW 3. Oh, look. Yeah, look at me. Look at my long beard. Yeah, I hadn't shaved in that day. You can basically participate in a great big game of quad or whoop, as it were, and win prizes. So there are links in the video description to how you can do that. If you fly whoops, if you like acro and doing tricks with your whoops, definitely something to check out. Let's just move on now, unless you feel like there's something you need to add.
Nope. Just want to say there's 150 people in here and it's $11,000. So get
pretty
up
good
in
odds.
there.
Wow, $11,000.
Yeah, and they're expecting it to hit 15,000. Actually, GemFan just put in $1,000 worth of prizes today. And also, I just want to say real quick that every week that you participate, you get to participate for up to 5 weeks because you can whoop out. It's 5 letters, right?
I
so
see. Minimum 5 weeks before you're eliminated.
Right, and every week you have chances to get prizes just for submitting a video. So it's kind of hard not to compete in this.
Yeah, it's really, I mean, even if you just sign up and try it, and what's the worst that happens? The worst thing that could happen is every week you try a new challenge, you fail, and then, hey, whatever. No harm done. It's not like we're going to shame you.
You might win some
Maybe you win some prizes.
Yeah.
All right,
cool.
Sweet. Last thing. This is our sort of ranty topic, Blunty. Have you seen the new iFlight backpack?
Yes, I have seen the new Torvol Pitstop Pro 2 backpack. No, it's. Let's
look at it. Let's look at it. Let's look at it.
Yeah.
Oh, because I had this experience. I was like, oh, that looks pretty good. Yeah, very interesting. I always complain on my Torvol that there's that I wish my Torvol had a third strap. So, very nice. I hadn't got there yet, Blunty. And I was like, oh, yeah, it looks really good. Organization. And then I saw the side pocket. I can't make this any bigger, unfortunately. And I was like, those side pockets look exactly like a Torvol Pitstop Pro. And that was when I knew it couldn't be an accident.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you go through and compare this, anybody who looks at these are going to be, it's going to be pretty clear to most people that these are pretty much the same thing. We're a very similar design anyway.
Yeah, they definitely cribbed a lot from Torvol's design. I wish I had a better picture of that side pocket because it literally is exactly like a Torvol Pitstop. The layout of the pocket is identical. So I'm always excited about a new backpack, Blunty, but I'm always trying to negotiate where that gray line is between where you've gone too far and you've sort of stolen too much.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard because right now I don't even know if you can buy a Pitstop Pro. That's the other thing is I think they're really hard to find, or at least I know what I've looked. It's been in and out of stock.
I'm going to look right now.
Maybe something to consider there, but
no, out of stock. Yeah.
I don't know. It's hard to support what looks like a blatant ripoff, but it's hard to say because there are improvements. There are some small changes.
That's the thing. Like, I love my Torvol. It's a great backpack. And some of the things I like about it are the organization of those side pockets. Like, I was actually super excited when I saw that they had done that. And then, so it's like somebody took the Torvol, they took all the things I wished Torvol would fix, but hasn't, and then they fixed them. And I'm like, should I not, be happy about that?
Yeah. I got to be honest, it's hard to know where to land on this because there's laws about, how close you can be to certain products and how much difference there needs to be. And, I don't know. Maybe there's some way they could have changed it so it doesn't look like very much the same form factor, but.
Yeah. The big question will be quality. It always is.
Yes.
Because Torvol is a bag maker. You look at companies like Torvol, Think Tank, Lowpro, they are bag makers first and foremost. And so they know how to make bags. You look at an iFlight, iFlight doesn't make bags, right?
Yes.
So they found a factory somewhere, and they decided that this was the factory that was going to make their bags, and there's a lot of potential for the quality to not be as good as it needs to be, especially when you're spending $200 on a backpack. And I'm certainly don't mean to sound disparaging, but it's an unknown.
Here's what I'll say: I definitely would not pre-order this. Like,
fair.
There's, even if you can't find one when they come out, I don't think it's worth pre-ordering, because we've seen issues with other backpacks, and just anybody who's going to try to make a product that looks like another product for less money than the previous product and make some positive changes, you have to be somewhat suspicious of the of what comes out. So I think we need to see it come out, see some people get it, see some reviews go out on it, and let people try it at a field and make sure it's reliable. And if it is, I think we judge it as it is.
Yeah. My Torvol bag is 2+ years old and still hanging in there. No ripped seams, no bad zippers. Everything just, it's beat to heck, but it just works. And they're certainly saying a lot. You certainly don't want to spend $200 on a bag twice. Somebody in the Discord suggests that Torvol is actually just making this for iFlight. You never know. Or maybe it's the same factory, like a gray market kind of a thing. The freaking, they look this, the photos of the side pockets look identical.
They're very similar. That's for sure.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to getting one. I certainly, I don't think it's enough of a blatant ripoff that I would feel like I had to take a moral stance and reject it just from the photos. And I'm tempted by the improvements they've made. So I'm looking forward to getting one and getting to review it.
Yeah.
So
cool.
All right, that's my take. All right, folks, that is going to do it. Wow, Blunty, we're 20 minutes over. I knew it was going to be a long one. Thanks for sticking with us. Thank you guys for sticking with us as well.
As always, we say every week, make sure you send anything you want to get on the show to news@fpvknowitall.com.
Yes, sir.
Over there. And then also don't forget to, I'll just say as well, we had a few things that I left out that'll go next week. So if you missed something this week, it'll probably be next week. And then also go down and subscribe to this channel, hit a like for this channel, or just leave a comment. That's really good for the metrics. Dislike. We appreciate all that kind of stuff. We appreciate all the metrics. That kind of thing.
And Blunty, link to your channel is also down below, as well as all our show notes. Last thing, if anybody out there wants to leave a comment with timestamps, I will pin the comment, or I'll come back in a day or so and make the timestamps for the timeline. That's going to do it, folks. We'll see you next week, 6 p.m., and I'll be back Sunday at 1 p.m., which is my normal streaming time. Happy flying, everybody.
Thanks, guys.